Hey, how you doing today? Luke 5:27 through 30. As Jesus left the town, he saw a tax collector named Levi sitting at his tax collector's booth. "Follow me and be my disciple," Jesus said to him. So Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. Later, Levi held a banquet in his home with Jesus as the guest of honor. Many of Levi's fellow tax collectors and other guests also ate with him. But the Pharisees and their teachers of religious law complained bitterly to Jesus' disciples. "Why do you eat and drink with such scum?" Ouch. One of the things I learned as I did my homework on this was that Jesus, as he saw Levi in the original language, he didn't just see him, right? But what it meant was that, let me see, this scholar says that he paid careful, thoughtful attention to him. He says that Jesus' own observation, not some preconceived notions about tax gatherers, guides his judgment about Levi. Ooh, that kind of really caught my attention because tax collectors were bad news, man. And back in that day, the Jewish folks thought they were traitors, right? They could get kind of forceful and wanting their money. Right? They were agents of the Roman Empire and they were just scum, right? But Jesus, he doesn't see scum. He doesn't see a tax collector. He sees a human being who's made in the image of God. And what does it say here? It says he paid him careful, thoughtful attention. He listened to him. He watched him. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge for me. I can kind of live in stereotyping people or creating labels or preconceived notions about people, right? About groups. But it seems that for Jesus, the poor, the oppressed, tax collectors, lepers, right? They aren't labels, right? They aren't just stereotypes, but they're human beings, again, made in the image of God. And the thing is, each of them have their own story. That's what I found. People have their own story, unique ways that they're made, but even ways they've been hurt, ways they've healed. It's pretty amazing, right? But Jesus immediately goes out among these folks, right? He touches them. He hears their stories. He observes them. He's not worried about getting contaminated by them like the Pharisees. The Pharisees had to stay separate in order to stay pure, right? But he goes into their midst and offering acceptance and love and grace so that there can be forgiveness and healing and wholeness. I get challenged by that because I would like to be able to do that too, right here in Waverly and Pike County. See past stereotypes and labels. Douglas Steer, I just read an article, he said, to listen to another soul. To listen to another soul. Isn't that beautiful? Maybe almost the greatest service that any human being ever performs for another. I remember 2 times in my life when I got hit in the head with this kind of a thing. And one was when I was in my mom and dad's house. I was in college way back then. It was back in the 80s. Ronald Reagan was president. And he said that the Soviet Union, that Russia was an evil empire. And that really caught my young attention. And I began to wonder about that. And I wanted to know more about that. And I studied about that. I studied their culture. I studied their language. And I even saved my pennies working at the restaurants. And I got to go over to the Soviet Union. That's right during the Cold War. Yeah, it was a little creepy. I'll give you that. But I met people. I met human beings, not the evil empire, not even Russians. I met human beings who had stories to tell. And they did. And they liked me. And I liked them, loved them. And so now when I hear, God bless America, I appreciate that. I appreciated coming back to America. I really did. But I also think, I want God to bless my Russian friends too, my Russian family as well. I don't see them as a stereotype anymore. Another area was an area of addiction, is when it got kind of close to home for me and friends. I know in social media, and I overhear folks talking about those people and those addicts. And they have some pretty rough things to say. But my heart opened. I lost my preconceived notions and my stereotypes when I got to sit down and listen and love and hear those stories from those people that were made in the image of God, and it changed me. I think I grew a little bit to be more like Jesus in that way. In Luke 14:12 through 14, it says, Jesus said, when you put on a luncheon or a banquet, you don't invite your friends, brothers, relatives, and your rich neighbors, all the people like you. They'll invite you back, but that's going to be your only reward. Instead, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. You sit around the table with them. You get to know them. Then at the resurrection of the righteous, God will reward you for inviting those who could not repay you. Indeed, it seems we invite human beings. We're supposed to invite human beings into our lives. Because we all need the undeserved, unearned love of God, grace, a place of acceptance, right at the table, a place where we can come, all of us made in the image of God. We find hope, we find healing, we find wholeness, we find forgiveness and peace. And I tell you what, this table can be set anywhere. It can be set anywhere, man. In Waverly and Pike County, at the Kroger's, down getting your oil changed, because it's an adventure. Every person made in the image of God. Think about that. And so when I see them, I see an individual, and I want to hear their story. I want to get to know them better. It makes life an adventure. Tremper Longman said this: we should remember that others are created in the image of God. Those we love, those we dislike, those who annoy us, those who bring us joy, all are created in the image of God and should be treated with our deepest respect and concern. All. Those of all races, both genders, different sexual orientations, professions and occupations, the rich, the poor, all reflect God's glory and represent his presence in the world. John Calvin, he was a scholar a long time ago, he said this: it is that we remember not to consider men's evil intention, but to look upon the image of God in them, which cancels and removes their transgressions. Whoa, think about that. The image of God cancels any of these preconceived notions or any kind of things we got in our head. But it's with beauty and dignity that allures us to love and embrace them. It's that image of God in them that allures us to love and embrace them. And so what I'm doing, I'm taking it as a personal challenge, this story, to be more like Jesus and reaching out to embrace other folks, right, that I meet in Waverly, in Pike County, wherever I go, but see them as human beings and somehow to hear their story. I want to become less of an introvert and work more at observing and starting conversations. See, that's the thing. I want to learn how to do that a little better so that I can hear these personal stories. When I was getting my oil changed this morning, I thought about that. A gentleman was in a wheelchair. He was different than me. He looked different. And he stopped to say hello. And I talked a little bit, but then I went back to my phone reading my book. And I thought about it. I thought about this and I said, I need to get better. I'm going to get better at asking him maybe his name, right? Just a little bit more about him, right? And that way just remove any more of the stereotypes that I might have, but get to know somebody, a human being made in the image of God. I want to get better at that with everybody I meet, okay? So there's just something for you. I want to get better at it. And if you're already good at this, right, or working on it, let me know so I can get some pointers. I'll see you. God bless you. Love you.